Let's dive right into a massive evolutionary cold case that has literally just been cracked wide open. Today's explainer is all about a fascinating new paper titled The Rise of Polyploids During Environmental Upheaval. It's by lead authors Heng-Chi Chen, Yves Van de Peer, and an international team of researchers, and it was just published in the highly prestigious journal Cell. I want you to treat this like a breaking news story from millions of years ago, because what these researchers found, it completely flips our understanding of how plants manage to survive the absolute worst days on planet Earth.
And this brings us to a massive question right out of the gate. Why on earth would you double your DNA? This hits on a huge mystery that biologists call the polyploid paradox. You see, plants are constantly making these genetic mistakes where they accidentally duplicate their entire genetic code. We see these new polyploids, which are really just plants with extra sets of chromosomes, all the time in nature and in our crops. But here's the paradox. When we look back through deep evolutionary time, ancient surviving examples of these duplicated genomes are incredibly rare. They pop up constantly, but they almost always seem to die out. So why do plants keep doing it?
Well, to make sense of this, we need to understand what whole genome duplication, or WGD, actually is. Think of your DNA as a giant instruction manual. WGD is basically getting a sudden, complete backup copy of that entire book. Now, in normal, stable times, carrying around twice the genetic baggage is pretty clumsy. It takes extra energy, it messes with cell sizing, and it usually causes the plant to just lose out to its normal, streamlined neighbors. But having all those spare pages means you also have spare parts you can freely edit, mutate, and play around with, all without destroying the original instructions.
So how do we even begin investigating ancient genomes like this? Let's take a look.
To solve this paradox, the research team went on a massive detective hunt to figure out exactly when these rare genetic anomalies actually managed to beat the odds and survive long-term. And the sheer scale of this investigation is just staggering. They analyzed the complete genomes of 470 different flowering plant species. We're not just talking about a handful of common garden plants here. They were cross-examining the genetic history of a massive chunk of the entire plant kingdom.
Out of those 470 genomes, the team used highly sophisticated molecular clocks and successfully pinpointed and dated 132 independent, ancient whole genome duplication events. To put that into perspective for you, this dataset is vastly larger than anything previous studies have attempted. It gives us the highest resolution map of ancient plant genetic survival we have literally ever had.
This brings us to the extinction connection and the real core of this mystery. This is where the researchers had their huge aha moment. When they took the dates of those 132 ancient surviving polyploids and mapped them against Earth's chaotic geological history, an absolutely striking pattern emerged. The survival of these duplicated genomes clustered almost perfectly around Earth's absolute worst periods of environmental upheaval. Let's just walk through this catastrophic detective board for a second. Around 64 million years ago, we see a massive survival spike right near the KPG extinction. Yes, that is the exact same asteroid that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs. Then, around 54 million years ago, there's the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, a massive global warming event. Fast forward to 35 million years ago, the Eocene-Oligocene transition brings sudden global cooling. And then, at 14 million years ago, the Middle Miocene disruption hits. You see the pattern? Whenever the world literally fell apart, these genetic anomalies suddenly started surviving.
Okay, so how exactly are they surviving environmental upheaval? How does doubling your DNA turn a clumsy, slow-growing plant into an apocalyptic survivor? It all comes down to two totally different ecological situations based on competition. In stable environments, normal plants are highly tuned to their specific niches. They easily outcompete the newly duplicated plants, which are just struggling under the weight of their clunky extra DNA. But during a massive environmental upheaval, those normal plants die off en masse. Competition plummets, and suddenly the polyploids, with all their extra genetic spare parts, become what evolutionary biologists call hopeful monsters. They can rapidly adapt those extra genes to handle freezing cold or intense drought, basically surviving while everything else perishes.
As the authors summarize so beautifully in the paper, polyploids mainly established during times of great environmental upheaval. In plain English, having a spare set of DNA is a totally useless burden on a sunny day, but it is an absolutely critical, life-saving evolutionary advantage when the environment is rapidly collapsing around you. Now, we do have some lingering questions, and we need to talk about what this means for the future. Any good science requires a critical eye, right? So how confident are we in these deep time dates? Well, the researchers are scientifically honest about the limitations here, which is exactly what we love to see. Dating genetic events from tens of millions of years ago is notoriously tricky. Geological boundaries can be fuzzy, and the molecular clocks we use to date DNA definitely have some uncertainty built in. But because they used that massive dataset of 470 species and ran multiple rigorous statistical models, the overall mathematical pattern is robustly supported. The specific year of a duplication might be slightly blurry, but that clustering around mass extinctions, that is undeniable.
So the single most important insight from this entire paper is this. These genomic anomalies, which were long thought to be mostly evolutionary dead ends, actually act as crucial evolutionary lifesavers during mass extinctions. They are quite literally nature's ultimate biological insurance policy. And that leaves us with a rather profound and provocative thought to end on. Right now, Earth is undergoing another period of rapid, extreme environmental upheaval, obviously this time driven by human-induced climate change. Knowing what we know now from this paper, we really have to ask, out in the forests and fields around us today, are plants creating the next generation of ancient polyploids? Are we actively witnessing the birth of the exact hopeful monsters that will survive our current climate crisis? It's wild to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this changes the way you look at the incredibly resilient nature of life on Earth.